Hi there. My name is Alan Sroki. I'm the Associate Director of Political Strategy here at Assembly. I am joined by my co-host, co-worker, and good friend, Tyler Goldberg.
Well, thank you, Alan. Over the next 3 months, we're going to be coming to you with tidbits of information on what we're seeing in the political media landscape, where spending is happening, why it's happening, what's happening, and most importantly, how it's affecting commercial advertising. As the only global omnichannel media agency with an in-house political practice, Assembly is in a unique position to observe and report on what's going on in the market. And Alan, all I can say is over the past few weeks, there's been quite a bit going on in said market.
That is putting it lightly. The biggest news, of course, is that there's been a pretty dramatic shift at the top of the presidential ticket. Joe Biden is out, Kamala Harris is in, and over the last couple of weeks, we have seen her pick up where Joe Biden left off on all the major swing states. She has come back in on linear broadcast in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and North Carolina.
North Carolina is particularly interesting because there's been a lot made of the multiple pathways the vice president seems to have to get to those 270 electoral votes, potentially a more pathways than President Biden had. So that investment in North Carolina is particularly interesting to us to see. It definitely seems, Alan, that the Trump campaign has noticed. I mean, they have placed a ton of money over the past few weeks in North Carolina, especially in some of those smaller markets that aren't, your stereotypical political markets for a statewide race. What's fascinating to me is that the Trump campaign's reservations there or buys there, it's their second busiest state. So clearly they think it's important. The vice president's campaign surely knows it's important. But what's more is that this comes on top of all of the other spending we've seen in North Carolina. One of the busiest governor's races this year, actually the busiest governor's race this year, is taking place there. That's a very intense race. There's been a lot of spending. I believe the first reservations for that race were placed in October of 2023. So obviously that's one that's going to be seeing a lot of activity. And that's where it's really interesting to look at this spending, because you're thinking of the presidential race is obviously generating the most news and giving us the most gray hairs over the past few weeks. But it sort of happens in the context of all of this other political spending.
Yeah, and it's not just the swing states either. If you're a viewer at home, say in Texas, you may also be getting your first exposures to this presidential campaign while watching Olympics coverage. The Kamala Harris campaign is doing a lot to reintroduce herself to the national stage. And a great way that she has found to do that is to place national buys on pretty much every Olympic sport out there right now. Both her and some of her associated issue expenditure groups are all doing National Olympics coverage. At a certain point, it's going to, telegraph that perhaps the Trump campaign will come and match her. He has less to do to, I think, introduce himself to the public than she does at this stage of the campaign. But it is definitely one of those things. It's fascinating to watch her operate in this new world that she's found herself in, and that's one of those areas in which she's done so.
And again, having that layered on, I was in Pennsylvania last week and watching the Olympics, seeing, Future Forward ad, Kamala Harris ad, MAGA Inc., which is obviously a Donald Trump affiliated PAC. Then seeing Dave McCormick ads for Senate in Pennsylvania. These folks who are living in these areas better buckle up, because you're about to be, if you aren't already, inundated. And that's to say nothing of the even further down ballot races.
So obviously we just covered a lot there in a pretty short amount of time, but there's still plenty more to come, right? I mean, what should we be looking for heading forward?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the fundraising numbers have been off the charts on both sides of the aisle. I mean, and I think a lot of this, it's easy to say this goes back to the debate. I mean, former President Trump started breaking fundraising records immediately following his conviction. So we've seen this summer of just an incredible amount of money on both sides. That money's got to go somewhere. And between the convention, potential debates coming up, I think those are tentpole moments that we'll see a lot of spending. But I think we are absolutely in the thick of it from now through November 5th. All this to say, stay tuned to APolitical. We're going to be getting you through the election cycle, hopefully in one piece alongside us.
With that, I'm Alan Sroki.
I'm Tyler Goldberg.
Thanks for tuning in to the first episode of APolitical. We'll catch you all next week.